Blog Talk Radio.
Welcome everybody to Morris Talk Live 100. I am your host, Tarhaka El Bay, and tonight, sorry, I'm so used to being on late at night. Early this morning, what time is it? It's 4:30 in the morning. We're running a broadcast test because we've had some technical difficulties on the show. However, we're going to run it through its entirety to make sure everything is working properly. This is a live podcast. We're dealing with law, private, public, business, contract law. We're going to cover a whole lot of bases. But before we get started, I'm going to go ahead and run these commercials. And when I get back, then we're ready to go all in. Okay, so y'all just hold on a minute.
All right, everybody. Don't forget. The greatest focal point in your life is when preparedness and opportunity meet. Hello, I'm Tarhaka El Bay. I want to give a shout out to all the brothers and sisters across the country that got our secure party and credit information. It was now officially operating in the private. Keep in mind, you can access the direct treasury account, private banking, knowing the difference between public and private and being able to function correctly. Do that OID. Learn about your 1099s. You can do a whole lot of stuff once you have the knowledge to do so. Go to TarhakaDebtElimination.org. That's TarhakaDebtElimination.org. Fill out the Contact Us form. Send it to me and I'll send you my free report. TarhakaDebtElimination.org.
Okay. Now, I have a list here that I want to go over and elaborate on this morning. We're going to be dealing with the following information: private versus public, right to travel, and what I did. What are the rights of indigenous people? Okay, now, something has come out here, and it's right there on the internet. I have a copy of it, and actually, you can just go and get your own copy. It's called the Declaration of the Rights of Indigenous Peoples Act. You know, we always had the article about the issued by the United Nations about the rights of indigenous people. But this is different. It is the Declaration of the Rights of Indigenous Peoples Act. Go online, type it in, and get you a copy of that. Okay, my court case and what I did. Correcting your legal status. Now, this is very, very important. We're going to go over the bases because we have a whole lot of people asking a whole lot of questions about a whole lot of things, but we're going to put this stuff in a nutshell for you this morning, and we're going to run the plug. What I suggest that you do is make sure that when you listen to this broadcast, listen to it more than once, and make sure you have paper and pencil handy. And keep in mind, TarhakaDebtElimination.org. Remember that, TarhakaDebtElimination.org. You can send for my free report. My contact information is right there. My phone number is there. You can contact me if you got any questions. But I'm going to lay it out for you straight out. Nationality. Okay. I know so often you hear us talk about nationality in the Moors and so on and so forth. But did you know that a people that refuse to acknowledge their nationality is considered by the world as a people without a civilization? Did you know that? So when you look at television and you listen to radio and you hear people talking about, well, you know, this is a black area and black people this and African Americans, so on and so forth. This is nothing. This is so ingrained in our society. I mean, people without a nationality is regarded as a people that simply don't have a civilization. Okay? Remember that. What is the law of nature, natural law? America versus Africa. Because we got this thing, well, you know, we, black people, they came from Africa in America on a slave ship, and that's how they got here. Wow. I'm not an African. I didn't come from Africa. I have always been here. My blood type is not an African blood type. We're going to deal with that. Religion versus spirituality, we're going to deal with that. Law and rights on food, air, and water. Now, that's an easy one. Now, who owns the earth that produces the food? Who owns the air that we breathe? Who owns the water that we drink? Think about that for a minute. Who is it that's coming up with all these rules and regulations and guidelines and legislation about food, air, and water? Let's find out who owns it first. Should you have business sense? Now, we deal with private, public, private banking and all that. And we got a whole lot of brothers and sisters that are doing a whole lot of good stuff. But do you, even though you are able to accomplish a lot of things, your direct treasury account, your 1099 OID, your 1099A, your 1099C, and but what about having business sense to go along with that? Because we got so many institutions inside the United States where you can pretty much get an education just on straight business for a little or nothing. A lot of it is absolutely free. But we have a lot of people, I think, and this is just my personal opinion, that feel like, well, if I can purchase me a car using me a 1099, you know, I don't know that about if I can buy me a house doing this, that, and the other in the private and so on and so forth, I don't need no business there. I find that very, very interesting. Nevertheless, we're going to deal with this here tonight. Living at law, private versus the public. Keep in mind the number to dial into the broadcast is 563-999-3443. Press 1 on your phone. That'll give me an indication that you have something to say. The switchboard is open. And keep in mind, this is a test, and we're going to deal with some things. We're going to run it to the end, but you can get involved. You can call in here if you got some questions for me. I'm right here this morning to answer your questions. Okay? All right? Let's talk about law. What does legal or illegal have to do with the law? What is private and public? How do you create a contract? And why should you even create one in the first place? We will deal with this stuff. And once again, should you have any business sense? I'm going to go ahead and answer that right off the top of my head. There ain't no mystery about that. Of course you should, man. Public, private, it doesn't matter. If you have knowledge concerning the difference between public and private, don't you think you'll be able to go much, much further if you had just some common business sense? Of course you will. Instead of just relying on something somebody said about this, that, and the other, what about growing your own food? What about that? Okay, before we get started, let's go straight on here and deal with this plug that I got on your blood type. Pay close attention because African blood type is one way, and then we got people inside this country is being kept away from their identity and denationalized and all that, which is a crime that ranks with genocide and treason. Well, let's take a look at the blood types and find out about that. Okay, y'all hold on a minute. And I'll be right back because we're going to delve down in the middle of all of this, man.
Most of the world didn't have it until colonization started in the 15th century.
And it's the one blood type that is least likely to mutate or interact with other blood types.
In the heart of the Americas lies a profound enigma that has puzzled scientists and historians for centuries. It's a mystery that traces back through the annals of time, whispered in the legends of ancient civilizations, and etched into the very bloodlines of indigenous peoples. The type O blood, a genetic anomaly, has been found to hold within its crimson depths the secrets of a lineage as ancient as the continent itself. But what exactly makes this blood type so unique? Is it merely a quirk of genetics, or does it hold the key to unlocking the secrets of our ancestors? Join us as we unravel the history and mystery of type O blood, an indigenous heritage in the Americas. The basics of blood. The vital essence that flows through our veins, known as blood, is not just essential for keeping us alive, it tells a remarkable story about our history, genetics, and evolution. At the core of this narrative lies the blood group system, which categorizes human blood into 4 main types: A, B, AB, and O. These types depend on whether specific antigens are present on the surface of our red blood cells. Antigens are proteins and sugars that decorate these cells and can trigger reactions from our immune system. Types A and B have their respective antigens, while AB has both, and O lacks them entirely. O blood, often referred to as the universal donor, is precious in emergencies and transfusions because it minimizes the risk of rejection in recipients with different blood types. Interestingly, O blood is more prevalent among indigenous peoples of the Americas. One reason for this wide extension could be the evolutionary advantages it offers. O blood, lacking A and B antigens, may have a reduced risk of hosting certain diseases, providing a survival edge. Some studies even suggest that O blood might offer more protection against severe diseases like malaria. While this theory aligns more with blood type distribution in Africa, it still adds to the complexity of the story. Examining the distribution of blood types among different populations reveals a captivating tale of human migration and adaptation. Globally, type O is the most common blood type, but its prevalence varies significantly by region. In the Americas, particularly among indigenous groups, the proportion of type O blood is remarkably high, indicating strong evolutionary selection over thousands of years. The exact reasons for this preference remain somewhat mysterious, but they likely involve a combination of environmental challenges and disease resistance. One theory suggests that the supposedly superior oxygen delivery of type O blood at higher altitudes may have given ancient inhabitants of the Americas' mountainous regions a survival advantage. This great deal of fine detail of blood types paints a fascinating picture of our past, highlighting the deep connections between our biology, environment, and history. It shows how our bodies have adapted over time to various challenges, leaving a lasting imprint on our genetic makeup and shaping our present-day health outcomes. Geographic lineage mysteries. The global spread of different blood types tells an intriguing story about how humans have moved around the world throughout history. Among all the patterns, the frequency of type O blood in the Americas is especially fascinating. These blood types vary across different regions, and understanding these variations helps unravel the complex history of human migration and interaction. Blood type distribution varies widely across the globe, reflecting thousands of years of human evolution and movement. While type O is the most common worldwide, its dominance differs from region to region. In Africa, where human life is believed to have originated, type O blood is highly prevalent, suggesting it may be the oldest blood type. As people migrated into Europe and Asia, the prevalence of type O decreased, with type A becoming more common in Western Europe and type B in Central and Eastern Asia. This shift suggests a complex interplay between genetics, environment, and social structures shaping human populations over millennia. The striking difference in the occurrence of type O blood in the Americas, particularly among indigenous populations, raises intriguing questions about ancient migrations and population dynamics. In many indigenous communities, type O blood reaches frequencies as high as 90 to 100%, contrasting with the global average of around 62%. Theories suggest that ancient migrants to the Americas, who likely crossed a land bridge during the last ice age, carried predominantly type O blood. These early migrants eventually became the ancestors of today's indigenous peoples. The isolation of the Americas from Eurasia until the arrival of Europeans could explain the high prevalence and maintenance of type O blood. Limited contact with other populations restricted the introduction of new genetic variants, allowing type O to become entrenched in the gene pool of indigenous populations. Additionally, selective pressures such as diseases and environmental factors may have favored individuals with type O blood, further increasing its prevalence. Comparing the frequency of type O blood in the Americas with that of other isolated populations worldwide provides additional insights into the impact of migration and isolation on blood type distribution. While some Pacific islands and remote communities also show high occurrences of certain blood types due to their unique migration histories and periods of isolation, the dominance of type O in the Americas remains unparalleled. This is the unique historical and prehistoric context of the continents, prompting questions about the movements and survival strategies of ancient peoples. Tracing the type O trail. The story of type O blood's journey through history and across the vast landscapes of the Americas is full of mystery, strength, and change. Our tale starts with the migration of early humans to the Americas, a huge journey over thousands of years as they crossed the land bridge from Asia during the last ice age. These pioneers brought with them genetic markers that would shape the bloodlines of their descendants, including the O gene, a quiet signal of survival and adaptation. Scientific studies looking at blood type distribution among native populations have found interesting patterns. An important study in the 1980s with Native American populations in Arizona showed that 99% of participants had type O blood. This high number is seen in native communities from the snowy mountains of Canada to the lush rainforests of the Amazon. But why is type O blood so common among these groups? The answer might be found in the process of natural selection and adapting to the environment. Early settlers faced tough conditions where type O blood could have been really helpful. Its lack of A and B antigens might have reduced the risk of diseases, common in tough environments. Also, people with type O blood might have been better at adapting to different conditions, making it more common. As native people spread across the continent, those with type O blood might have been better at surviving and passing their genetic heritage through generations. This process happened over thousands of years, leading to the big presence of type O blood seen today among native populations. But the story of type O blood isn't just about surviving tough conditions and diseases. It's also about human connection and shared history, acting as a biological link, bringing together different communities across the continent. Recent advances in deoxyribonucleic acid technology have allowed scientists to trace lineages and migrations very accurately, confirming the ancient origins of type O blood in the Americas. However, this historical journey isn't just interesting for academics. It has big implications for health and medicine among native populations. The universal donor status of type O blood makes it important for blood transfusions and emergency medical care, showing the urgent need for blood donation in these communities where type O blood is really wanted but not always available. Modern implication of ancient blood. Tracing the journey from ancient times to today, we find that type O blood has important implications for modern medicine and healthcare. Exploring its mysterious beginnings and evolutionary benefits shows how it affects medical treatments, urgent responses, and the global blood supply. Type O blood is crucial in today's medical practices, especially in emergencies where immediate transfusions are needed. Its special characteristics make it the basis of emergency care and surgeries. Type O negative blood is highly valued as it can be given to patients of any blood type without causing problems. This is important in emergencies when the patient's blood type is unknown. Also, type O positive blood, while not universally compatible, can still be given to many people with a positive Rh factor. The need for type O blood, especially O negative, remains high worldwide, from emergency rooms to disaster zones and battlefields. It's often the top choice for transfusions when the recipient's blood type is uncertain. This shows the ongoing need for type O blood donors and the importance of having enough in blood banks and hospitals. However, the ability of type O blood to be given to anyone also creates challenges, like potential shortages because it's in high demand for various medical emergencies. Balancing the availability of type O blood with the needs of daily medical care and emergencies is a constant challenge for healthcare systems worldwide. Besides transfusions, the prevalence of type O blood has wider implications for medical and genetic research. Research suggests that blood type may affect susceptibility to certain diseases, with type O individuals possibly having a lower risk of coronary heart disease and different responses to pathogens. Understanding this link could change preventive healthcare and treatment methods. Ethical and social issues also come up, like ensuring fair access to type O blood, particularly in areas with fewer people who have it or less advanced healthcare systems. Increasing blood donation rates, improving storage and distribution methods, and promoting international cooperation are important steps to tackle these challenges. Looking ahead, the ancient origins and current importance of type O blood will continue to influence transfusion medicine, genetic research, and public health policies. Advances in artificial blood products, blood typing technologies, and genetic engineering might offer new answers to supply and compatibility issues. However, the natural properties of type O blood and its role as a universal donor are likely to stay crucial in emergency medicine and transfusion practices. The evolutionary advantage. The high occurrence of type O blood among Native American populations, especially in challenging environments like high altitudes, has intrigued scientists for years. This section delves into intriguing theories suggesting that type O blood might have given ancient peoples an evolutionary edge, helping them not just survive but thrive in tough habitats. One fascinating angle is how type O blood could aid in adapting to high altitudes. For thousands of years, people have lived in the Andes, where oxygen is scarce. To cope, their bodies underwent significant changes. Interestingly, many indigenous people in these regions have type O blood, hinting at a potential connection between this blood type and surviving in low-oxygen environments. So why might type O blood be advantageous in such places? One theory focuses on blood thickness and oxygen delivery. Type O blood tends to be less thick than types A, B, or AB, which could mean smoother blood flow and better oxygen delivery to tissues in low oxygen conditions, a crucial advantage for high-altitude living. Another aspect is disease resistance. Historical records suggest that diseases may have affected people with A or B blood more severely. Some studies suggest that type O individuals have a lower risk of severe malaria. While malaria wasn't a big concern in pre-Columbian America, this hints at a broader idea. Lacking A and B antigens on red blood cells might offer some protection against pathogens that target these molecules, reducing the impact of infectious diseases. There's also a link between diet and metabolism. Indigenous diets varied greatly.
from seafood-rich diets in the Pacific Northwest to corn-based diets in Mesoamerica. Some research suggests that blood type could affect how well people digest food and metabolize nutrients. Type O blood might be better suited for diets high in protein and fat, which is common among hunter-gatherer societies. Another interesting angle is the social aspect. In tight-knit indigenous communities, cooperation was crucial for survival. Type O individuals, being universal blood donors, could have been highly valued in times of injury or childbirth complications, as they could provide life-saving transfusions, potentially boosting their social status and reproductive success. While each theory offers intriguing possibilities, it's essential to approach them with caution. The relationship between blood type and evolutionary fitness is complex, influenced by various factors like environment, pathogens, diet, and social structure. Likely, the evolutionary advantage of type O blood among Native American populations stems from a combination of these factors rather than a single cause. Deoxyribonucleic acid and ancestry. In the complex history of humans, deoxyribonucleic acid tech has become a strong tool in finding family roots. By looking at blood types and ancient family lines, especially the prevalence of type O blood among native peoples of the Americas, deoxyribonucleic acid tests show where our ancestors came from. This study looks at how deoxyribonucleic acid tech helps us understand human movement and changes over time, and also makes our ties to our native heritage stronger, as seen in the story of Sitting Bull's family. For lots of people, this tech has been super helpful in showing their native heritage, backing up stories passed down through generations. Finding out about ancestry with deoxyribonucleic acid is especially important for native groups, where stories and connections to the land and ancestors are really important. Deoxyribonucleic acid tests offer another way to understand these connections or find new parts of your family history. For descendants of native peoples, this connection can be really meaningful, joining history with personal identity. Finding genetic marks specific to native groups in the Americas lets us connect directly to the first people who lived here, learning about different cultures and communities from before Europeans arrived. Discovering native ancestry through deoxyribonucleic acid isn't just about being curious, but about reclaiming identity and rebuilding connections lost because of colonization. This link is really important for people trying to understand where they fit in the wider native community. Deoxyribonucleic acid can show a real link to the past, helping people get more involved in cultural traditions, languages, and community connections. Knowing about native ancestry through deoxyribonucleic acid can also be important.
Okay, we back. All right. Now, do I agree with everything that was said about the blood types and the natives and the different tests that you did and to determine this, that, and the other, and the third? The answer is no. What's the difference between a native individual versus an individual that is absolutely indigenous to the land? The word indigenous, why didn't you just tell us about what was absolutely indigenous? You know, if I go to a place and when I arrive at that place, I see a people already there. So when I get to the place, I don't know how long the people have been there. Well, let's say I just come there and I stay there for, let's see, 500 years, 1,000 years. Does that make me indigenous? No. That makes me, I could be called a native. But when I got there, there were people already there that have always been there. So what is all of this information that you're regurgitating about the natives? You're not. What I want is 99.9.9 of information about the absolute indigenous people, the rightful owners of the place that I came to before I was classified as a native. Now I asked my parents, I say, my Aunt Laura, I say, you never did tell me about when we came here on slave ships and back in Africa. And he said, we were never no Africans. We didn't come from no Africa. We always been here. Always been here on our land. We had our own land, our own boys your eyes could see. We didn't have to go to no store. First of all, there were no stores. Everything that we had, we created right here. So what is all of this hundreds of thousands and millions of dollars where we get the Native America? Wait a minute, hold on. America. Let's back up a minute. What was the name of the land that the indigenous people gave it before it was called a place called America? What about that? Why is all of this stuff totally omitted and a whole bambogle of stuff put here to and just totally bury, eliminate, erase the truth about the original indigenous peoples of the land? How do you think that we're going to get to the bottom of some truth about something? How you going to build a house on a faulty foundation? That can't be done. But yet you continue to do this stuff and call it progress. But anyway, we're going to take a quick break, and when I come back, then we'll delve on down in some more of this information. Y'all hold on a minute. We'll be right back.
Hi, I'm Tarhaka. You know, there's a difference between what you believe and what you know for a fact and can prove. I live in the private and can prove it. I've exercised my freedom of right to travel and can prove it. I don't have a mortgage and can prove it. And much, much more. And so does many other people across this country and abroad who are secured party and creditors living in the private. Debt is a burden. It causes people a hard time in life. They can't live live in peace fast enough. Contact me at tarhakadebtelimination.org. You can call me and I'll answer the phone. Leave your email information on my website and get my free report. That's tarhakadebtelimination.org. Get out of debt. It's nothing but a burden. You can't move forward with that. That's a bunch of junk.
Okay, we back. Now, let's get on down into the nuts and bolts of wiggle pins. The first thing on the list is private versus public. Okay, most of us are accustomed to, matter of fact, that is the coat, so to speak, that the powers that be want the American people to put on. The people who believe they are Americans. A lot of people don't have no knowledge about nothing concerning their ancient identity. They have gone along with it. They actually think that people are in power are going to educate them. They say, well, you got to go to grade school, and you got to go to junior high school, then you got to go high school, then you got to go to college, and you can get a degree. What about indoctrination masquerading as education? Well, this is education. We don't want to talk about stuff like that. What about public and private? Who was it that came to the conclusion that I needed to be educated by someone else other than the people that brought me in the world in the first place? Who did that? Who came up with that idea? Nevertheless, public versus private. Now we got you're supposed to go to school, get a good education, so you can get a good job, and then you supposed to graduate to get a degree, and then you could get a career. You supposed to do this, that, and the third, where you can get a little bit more to do this and that. You got to follow the rules and regulations and the guidelines set down for you by somebody that you don't know anything about, and all of this stuff right here. All this is in the public. But what about the private? Well, I can only testify to what I know based on what I have already done. See, if you're private, you're private. Private means private. You can't, nobody can't come to you and say, well, you moved into this community, but we don't know anything about you. Well, that's okay. We don't know where you went to school at. We don't know where you, well, that's because I'm private. Well, we're public. You know, I don't care. Well, if you are not going to give us any information about who you are, where you came from, and this, that, and the other, well, we have to assume that you are doing something wrong. Since we don't know, we're public, we don't know anything about you. And what's your address? Well, I don't have an address. There are no numbers on my house. Well, you got to be doing something illegal. Amazing. My nationality is Moorish. The tribe that I descended from called a Blackfoot tribe. That's what they called it. And I'm private. I don't, anybody coming to my environment, you have to have an appointment. You contact me and we will set an appointment for you to be here. You don't pull up in front of my house and call me on the phone, hey, bro, I'm outside. No, that's not an appointment. You don't pull up here and, well, I just, I saw you come out the house, you going around the side of the house, so I just pull up. No, you don't have an appointment. Well, where are you anyway? Well, I'm right here at your house. What address is this? Well, let me see. You ain't got no numbers on the house. That's because I'm private. When they ask you, are you a U.S. citizen? Now, what's that? I have to say absolutely no. I am a citizen of Florida State Republic. I am a Floridian because that's the common word they gave for our land. And okay, so we'll go ahead and take that. We're on Turtle Island, by the way. And so what does it mean to operate in the private? How are you going to do that? Well, in order to do that successfully, you're going to have to know everything you can possibly know about the land that you're standing on and where we are currently, what transpired on this land in the past that brings us up to the point where we are today. Okay, what happened? We got a thing called the United States, and then we have another thing called the United States of America. Two different things. We have the state of Florida, and then we have Florida State. We have the state of California, and then we have California State. We have the state of New York, and then we have New York State. We have the state, and the list goes on and on and on and on and on. But nevertheless, I just want to touch on that, which I'm trying to cover as much ground as I possibly can here today. If you're private, you are private. That ain't nobody's business but yours. You'll have people that will try to force you into going along with their thoughts about public and private. They don't like the idea of you being private and ain't none of their business and you just private. You know, they'll tell you you get pulled over in your automobile and they say, well, there's a capias for your arrest. Well, what are you talking about? Well, there's a warrant for your arrest. Well, have you gotten anything in the mail, or has anybody, UPS or the post office delivered you anything putting you on notice of the fact that a warrant or capias has been issued for your arrest? No. We just pulled you over and told you some stuff that you didn't know anything about. Well, you got to do this, and you got to do that, and you got to do the third. Amazing, isn't it? All right, well, what we do over here at TarhakaDataElimination.org is we teach you how to fight back. We teach you how to sulate. We'll be right back. Hold
Warm
on.
greetings, fellow Americans and freedom lovers worldwide. This is Mark Emery coming to you today with a fundamental presentation to really clarify in your mind the difference between operating in the public and in the private, or at law, or in equity, according to statutory code. And this will determine exactly how much control that the state has over you. So you must understand this. And you cannot complain about denial of constitutional or fundamental natural law rights if you're not positioned properly to claim those rights. Okay, so we need clarification on this first and foremost, and I'll have some very special information for business owners as to some strategy as to how you can immunize yourself from regulatory control and a lot of the financial burden that goes with that. Okay? So the first part of this is for everyone, and then I'm going to get into the specifics of interest for business owners. Okay? So in operating in law, we have to undo the indoctrination that we've had all of our lives. Okay? You've heard the statement being made that everything we've been told in our life is a lie. And that's largely true, or at least partially true, in that we've only been told half-truths. We've only been given half the story, and through deception have been led to believe that certain things are absolute when they are not, when there are alternatives. And that's what this presentation is going to illuminate for you in your mind. Okay? So let's get through this quickly. We can start with the hierarchy of order. Okay? We all understand and know that everything came from our Creator. Whatever label you use for the Creator, it's universal. All right? That Creator created man, created us according to natural law. We have God-given rights. The rights to be free, the right to think for ourselves, the right to associate with whom we want, how to live our lives, provided we don't infringe upon the rights of anybody else. This is all natural law. And this is what the Constitution for the United States was derived from, if you read that and the Declaration of Independence. Okay? So man, in living under natural law, has a direct connection to the Creator. All right? So to better organize his affairs and intercourse between the people, the states of the world, and I'm talking commercially and behaviorally, okay, in relation to intercourse, man created then the state to be subservient to the needs of mankind, okay, to better organize and provide remedy for issues that arose, all right? And so thus was born the legislative code, all right? So this is the hierarchy of order. Now, what has happened is that man has basically turned his back on God to a large degree and now worships the state and has given the state the power to rule man's life by virtue of consent and contract. It's just like Esau in the Bible. You know, we've given up all of our inheritance for a bowl of porridge. So, in the same vein, man has given up his rights in exchange for benefits from the state. So you're going to see that here as we go. So at this point in time, this hierarchy of order has been turned upside down, where now the state is man's God and dominates and rules over man, which is out of order. All right? So you understand how that works. So the law of the land relates to the assertion of federally protected rights when plainly and reasonably made is not to be defeated under the name of local practice. All right? In other words, your federal rights cannot be overturned or usurped by anything done on a local legislative or judicial basis. Okay? It has no standing. And where rights secured by the Constitution are involved, there can be no rulemaking or legislation which would abrogate them. Think about these governor lockdown orders. Now this is the Miranda case. You've heard of the Miranda case in relation to the Miranda warning, a very important case. But what you don't hear is this very thing, that no rulemaking or legislation can abrogate those rights secured by the Constitution. Simple. Done. No ifs, ands, or buts. Okay? And those rights secured by the Constitution are given by God in the hierarchy of order. The Constitution doesn't grant or give or create rights. It merely protects those rights. It binds down mischievous men who would try to legislate those rights away. Okay, so I think most of us understand that, but we need to be very clear. Now, as it relates to privacy, there is no duty to the state, period. Quote, the individual may stand upon his constitutional rights as a citizen. He is entitled to carry on his private business in his own way. His power to contract is unlimited. He owes no duty to the state or to his neighbors to divulge his business or to open his doors to an investigation so far as it may tend to incriminate him. He owes no such duty to the state. He receives nothing therefrom beyond the protection of his life and property. His rights are such as existed by the law of the land long antecedent to the organization of the state, and can only be taken from him by due process of law, and in accordance with the Constitution. Among his rights are a refusal to incriminate himself, and the immunity of himself and his property from arrest or seizure except under a warrant of the law. He owes nothing to the public so long as he does not trespass upon their rights. That's a famous case of Hale versus Hinkle. Okay? So you're under no obligation to divulge your business. You have unlimited power to contract. You owe no duty to the state, period. If you're operating at law, in common law, as a man or woman upon the land. Okay? So this is fundamental, and many people don't understand this. Oh, well, why not disclose your finances or everything you're doing if you got nothing to hide? Well, I've got everything to hide because it's my business and nobody else's business. I have the right to privacy no matter what I'm doing. And I'm not doing anything wrong. I try to live a good, godly Christian life. Respect for everyone. But I have no duty to the state. Okay? So the point is made. And this reinforces it. This is an article that contains a number of Supreme Court sites and others basically saying that people have challenged city and county codes and land use codes and so on and so forth, and they've succeeded in what they've been doing. So this basically states that the city can only enforce ordinances to the extent that they actually own the land themselves. They cannot tell you what to do with your land as though they are the owner. So this is just proof in the pudding. So as it relates to sovereignty, let's talk about that. From Yickwo versus Hopkins, a Supreme Court case. Sovereignty itself is, of course, not subject to law, for it is the author and the source of law. But in our system, while sovereign powers are delegated to the agencies of government, sovereignty itself remains with the people, by whom and for whom all government exists and acts. And the law is the definition and limitation of power. So the law is not an extension of power, it's the limitation of power as to how far that goes. How far does a jurisdiction go? To whom and in what circumstances does a particular law apply? It's not universal. These are things that people often do not understand. Well, the law applies to everybody. Well, no, it doesn't. Specific laws apply to specific circumstances and people in a given context. And outside of that context, that law does not apply. Again, that's a myth people have to get out of their indoctrination. Okay? Now we're going to see an example of how a man used this status of sovereignty, of sovereign, as he dealt with the IRS. We'll deal with that in just a minute. So by what authority? Any one of the people have the common law right to presume non-authority of a person and to require a showing of what authority exists for the exercise by said person of some right, power, or franchise, which is claimed to be held in avoidance of the liability for tort in the trespass upon natural, common law, or statutory rights. Okay? So someone comes into your business, wants to start ordering you around, your first question ought to be, well, what's your authority? Why are you here, and what's your authority to be here? All right? The one who's asking the questions is the one who's in control. Okay? So that's just an example. We can get into a training on that. In fact, we have a couple of them. So as it relates to applying the law, there's only 3 jurisdictions that exist. Law, which is common law. Okay, in common law, for a claim to arise, there must be a corpus delicti, which is a damaged party. Bring forth the person who has been damaged and let him testify to that or show the damage. Then there's equity. Equity is for contracts. Equity arises when there's not a reasonable remedy at law, and so equity is there to resolve contracts. Okay, so you're bringing an action in equity. Show me the contract to which I'm liable. And then the third jurisdiction is Admiralty and Maritime, all right, for the high seas, which strangely enough is how most courts operate. Okay, again, show me the contract, the maritime contract. All right, so those are the three jurisdictions, and then the court will snag you either with in rem jurisdiction, which is over the thing. For example, if you have real estate registered with the county courts have jurisdiction over the thing because the property is registered to them. Okay? So you're not going to avoid that. Or in personam jurisdiction is over the person. Do you claim to be a U.S. citizen? If so, then you're subject to the legislative authority of the United States and its subdivisions. Or do you claim to be as a citizen of Minnesota State? If so, then you're subject to the laws of Minnesota. Now, people are learning that there is another alternative. Rather than being a U.S. citizen, people are changing their status to that of an American national, a Minnesotan, or a Floridian state citizen versus U.S. citizen, and those are separate and distinct legal jurisdictions. So once you're on record as being a Floridian, then you cannot be held to account for the obligations of a U.S. citizen. And that's a whole nother discussion, but it's important to understand just the basics of that. Okay? So let's move on. Now, operating in the public versus the private. This is interesting. When you're doing commerce with the public, when you're engaged in commerce with the public, this is regulated. Okay, and there's no way around that. Okay, the regulatory institutions have been put into place to protect the public, and that's where the regulation comes into view. In addition to, of course, the revenue generation that comes from it as well. But when you have a business that's open to the public, you have engaged in commerce with the public, and therefore your business is subject to regulation. Okay, you operate by legislative privilege. All right, you're operating by virtue of a state franchise. Okay. On the other hand, private contracts are not regulated, and of course we all have the God-given right to contract and the right to work, the right to associate, freely assemble, and so on and so forth. All right, now this is done by invitation only, exclusively with members, not with the public. This is a closed circle, not open to the public, only to members. Okay, now you're operating in the private, and this is where we get the private membership association. Many businesses are able to form as a PMA and not deal with the public and not have to deal with commerce. So that's a separation right there that's quite significant. Okay? So typically, again, when you're dealing with the public, you're dealing as a corporation, a limited liability company, a partnership, statutory trust, something along those lines. And remember, that which the state creates, it can control. Okay? So, just like the organic law and creation of man. All right? That which God creates, he can control. That which the state creates, it can control. Corporations, other state-controlled entities. So whenever you're benefiting from the exercise of a state franchise, there's always a return obligation, and that would be a fealty to the state statutes. Okay? On the other hand, you've got a right to contract, all right to free association, right to work. And again, with your own personal privacy, you have no obligation to the state if you're operating in that context. So no obligation means nothing to file, no compliance requirements, no tax obligations, because you're not engaged in a regulated taxable commerce, right? You're engaged in private business, private work activity, okay? And the only taxes you'll have to ever pay are use taxes, you know, paying the toll to go down the road, paying the gasoline taxes, which provides for the roads, okay? So you're starting to get the idea here? There's a distinct line of delineation between these two. So with that in mind, okay, well, people feel fearful. How do we get into trouble? How do they attack us? How do they come after us? Okay, how can they hurt us? Well, one is the state may try to issue a civil complaint for one thing or another. All right, which means they go after your stuff, put liens on your property, issue fines, go after your bank accounts like the IRS loves to do, and things like that. All right, so they'll go after your stuff, and then secondly, they will start a criminal action. Well, to make a criminal charge stick, they've got to prove intent to violate the law. All right, and it's very simple to nullify both of these roads which they use to attack us. Okay? So if you block those roads, you're home free. You put your stuff out of reach where they can't touch it. You don't have anything in your name anymore. And we can set the record very easily to show your good faith and intent to comply with the law, by reminding them what the law actually is, agreeing to do whatever they request you to do, conditional upon them, the state or whoever, the attacker, conditional upon them showing what authority they have to make their demands. Okay, so you see how things are starting to come together. So if they can't get your stuff, and if you've shown good faith the whole way in compliance with the applicable law, guess what? To whoever's trying to make a claim against you, it's bye-bye, buddy. Okay? Leave me alone. So let's talk about helping business owners, all right? Typically when you're running a business, again, you're doing business with the public, you're engaged in commerce, you're subject to the benefits of the state franchise by having a business corporation or LLC, and all of these things have liabilities. Okay, so you have to deal with the government, the IRS, the courts potentially, any freeloader who comes along who wants to create an incident and sue you for damages because you had a banana peel on the floor which they threw down and they slipped on and claimed damages. All right, so you've got that to deal with, and invariably, of course, then if any claim is made, it's made against not only the business but also the business owner. Well, the buck stops with you. You started the business, you benefit from the business, so you're wrapped up in any potential liability or claim against that business. Okay? That's a very vulnerable position to be in. And you don't want to be in that position. All right? So there are options to deal with that. All right? Let's just say that we set up a non-statutory common law contractual business organization. Just for simplicity, let's call it a non-statutory trust. All right? And you can transfer ownership of the business to that trust where you no longer are the owner. All right? Now, in view of that transfer, it's just like a buyer coming along wanting to buy the business. But rather than receiving cash, you do an exchange by contract. Ownership of the business is exchanged for certificate units of the non-statutory trust or business trust. Okay? Now those certificate units do not have an organized market like the stock market where you could go to sell stock, where you have price availability, market prices available. Okay? So in order for any event to be deemed taxable, a taxable event, fair market value must be established so that you can determine either a gain or a loss. And if there's a gain, then obviously that would be a taxable event. But if you're receiving certificate units with no readily available fair market value, then what you have is a tax-deferred situation, so that until such a time as you can sell those certificate units, you would never be able to put a price on it, nor a gain, thus a capital gain and tax that goes with that. Okay, so you follow me there? So it's a very simple transaction that can be done. All right, so what you've done is you've removed personal liability as owner of the business, and you've shifted that to the business trust, okay, away from yourself. Now you're just a hired hand. All right, so you've removed that personal liability from potential attackers. All right, now whether the ownership of the business is transferred or the entire business is totally converted to a non-statutory business trust, that's a question to be raised. Okay? It's possible that business could be converted entirely and then not have any liability to the statutory world. All right? It doesn't work in all cases, but that would need to be evaluated. At least you've been able to remove yourself personally as the owner of that business and shift that liability to one that is almost impenetrable. Okay? So let's take a look at another scenario with these arrangements in mind. Here you are with your money, and you've got the banks, the courts, the government, the predators. They've all got their eyes on your money. All right? They want to get a hold of it one way or the other. All right? Now, understanding this, you make certain arrangements where you might have established a private account with a gold vault, let's just say in Switzerland or Singapore or anywhere offshore. Okay? You could send those funds to purchase gold in that account and have that vault hold those funds for you. Okay? Now, we're talking about after-tax dollars here, okay? Unless, of course, you're fortunate enough to have positioned yourself where those taxes do not apply, and that's what smart people do, entirely safe and lawful. So now you've converted cash, which is normally seizable in a local bank, you've transferred that into gold in an offshore vault, which is intrinsically much more difficult to get to. All right? And within that gold dealer, you've got a private account and you've got a contractual business organization. We'll call that a trust. There's a trust account. So within the gold dealer, you could actually transfer value from your private account to the trust account, and that would be totally private, an internal operation within the gold dealer and his platform. All right? So if ever forced to fill out a financial statement, you could truthfully say, you know, those assets are no longer yours, and all you have in exchange is a certificate unit with no fair market value attached. Okay? So now the international trustee managing the private trust is able to put those funds to use in a more productive way, perhaps. Let's say through the trust, if you wanted to start building a diversified tax-free portfolio, that could be done, okay? And the private trust would be the owner. All right? What kind of a portfolio would you like to build? You are the agent now for the trustee managing the business of the trust. Trustee doesn't have the time or the interest to want to deal with all that, so you are appointed to manage that. All right, and when the time comes, you want to liquidate certain assets. Those get liquidated, go back to the trustee, perhaps back into the gold vault, and as such, you could access that through wire transfers being sent or debit card for access to the liquid value of those assets. Okay? And what have we done? We've completely avoided the institutionalized world and kept everything totally in the private. Okay? So now, let's just have some fun with definitions, all right? This is taken right out of the Internal Revenue Code. Title 26 of the U.S. Code is the Internal Revenue Code. And looking at these definitions, take a look at this. Definition here, A, when used in this title, where not otherwise distinctly expressed or manifestly incompatible with the intent thereof. 9, the United States. The term United States, when used in a geographic sense, includes only the states and the District of Columbia. Now, in common vernacular, we just are indoctrinated to think of the common usage of the word states. Well, we're thinking only the states, like Vermont, Washington, Florida, Texas, and the District of Columbia. But that's not how legalese works. When they use the term includes, that means to the exclusion of everything else. So what we're saying here, because the law is very specific, you can't say, well, it includes this, but it could also include a bunch of other stuff that we're not going to mention. That doesn't work like that, okay? So what they're saying here is that when used in a geographic sense, it includes only the states and the District of Columbia. Okay, so what are the states then? Let's look at the definition of the word states, which we find in definition 10. State, the term state shall be construed to include, at the exclusion of everything else, the District of Columbia. Well, isn't that interesting? So now, with this definition in mind, let's go back and reinterpret definition 9. So then what they're saying is the United States, when used in the geographic sense, includes only the District of Columbia and the District of Columbia. You see how legalese works, okay? Now, you have to pay taxes if you're engaged in a trade or business within the United States, right? So what do they define trade or business as? Definition 26. The term trade or business includes the performance of the functions of a public office. Did you get that? So, if you're engaged in a trade or business in the United States, what that means is you're engaged in a public office in the District of Columbia. Wow. Does that change your perception of reality? Do you see how when people say, well, the law applies to everybody, you see how that's a false statement? You see how legalese works? Now, definition 31, for an estate or trust. The terms for an estate or trust mean an estate or trust, and you, by the way, are an estate, the income of which, from sources without the United States, which is not effectively connected with the conduct of a trade or business within the United States, is not includable in gross income under subtitle A. Understand the impact of that. So, a foreign estate or trust means an estate or trust, the income of which comes from outside the District of Columbia and is not effectively connected with a public office within the District of Columbia, is not includable in gross income under subtitle A. So if you're not generating income as a public official in a public office in Washington, D.C., I have only one question. Why are you filing and paying taxes on income declared under subtitle A? So you see how things work here, all right? Just a few little tidbits for you. And let's take a look at an actual letter. This is the textual extract from an actual letter that was sent back in 1990. And let me show you how these things work and the results that can be achieved. Okay? So, dear District Director of the Internal Revenue, on or about December 1st, 1990, I received an unsigned document, which they're famous for. Nobody wants to take authority for what they're sending, all right? Authority only comes when someone takes risk. You take risk when you put your name to something and are to be held accountable for it. An unsigned document is totally meaningless and worthless. Okay, anyway, so I received this document claiming that you have not received the tax return and requesting that a Form 1040 be filed. I've enclosed a copy of that request for reference. I know of no such code that requires me to file a tax return 1040. If you know such a code, please identify that code for me. Okay, so if I'm in error, please correct me. I want to do the right thing here. I'm acting in good faith. I've enclosed a copy of the letter that I've sent to the Director of Foreign Operations District concerning this matter. And this is the context of the letter. In researching the Revenue Code Book, which your people kindly supplied to me, I discovered that only an individual is required to file a tax return. That's in 26 U.S.C. 6012. And then only under certain circumstances. In looking at Section 7701A1 of the Code, I discovered the term individual is defined as a person. Then, in checking 7701A30, I discovered the definition of a United States person as meaning a citizen of the United States, resident of the United States, domestic corporation, domestic partnership, and or a domestic trust or estate. There is no individual defined under 7701, and therefore I cannot be an individual within the meaning of 7701, paragraph 8, subsection 1, and or Title 26 U.S.C., section 6012. As well, the Supreme Court in the case of Wills versus Michigan State Police, at volume 105, Lawyers Edition, second edition, section 45, the case in 1989, made it perfectly clear that I, the sovereign, cannot be named in any statute as merely a person or any person. I'm a member of the sovereignty, as defined in Yick-Wo versus Hopkins. We referred to that a few minutes ago, and the Dred Scott case. Therefore, and until you can prove otherwise, I am not a taxpayer by definition, nor an individual that is required to file a tax return. Please forward to me a letter stating that I'm not liable for this tax return, or, in the alternative, produce the documentation that requires me to file the requested tax return, 1040. If you have any questions concerning this letter, please write to me at the address below. Please sign all papers so that I know who I'm dealing with. Until such a time as I hear from your office, I will take the position that I am no longer liable for filing the return. Failure to respond will be taken as taken as meaning that you have acquiesced, and that from this date forward, the doctrine of estoppel by acquiescence will prevail. Sincerely, N.R.A.
Okay, there you have it. They have been preaching this particular gospel for a long, long time. Y'all hold on a minute. We're going to give you a little break. Make sure you give you a chance to get you some more paper and pencil, because you should have been taking notes. But y'all hold on a minute. We'll be right back. All right, everybody, we're back. Now, I hope you got something out of this here, living at law, the public versus the private. And, anytime you get something from somebody, now they're trying to limit what they're sending you in the mail. And now we'll send it to you in an email. We'll send you a text message. It's amazing what they're doing today, but the rules and regulations change. Should I put it this way? Methods and techniques change, but principles never change. For instance, I had a gentleman, I think this man had to be in his 80s. He came to me and said, Brother Tarhaka, he said, I got a letter from the IRS. They say they're going to try to take my house. I have another house. They're trying to take that. They're trying to take my car. They're threatening to mess with my retirement and all of this stuff, man. He said, man, I can't even sleep at night, man. He said, I'm too old for this here. I said, well, they send it to you in the mail? Say, yeah. I said, well, bring it over here. Let me take a look at it. And, of course, first of all, it's addressed to the corporate fiction. He didn't know anything about that. But I said, this is what we're going to do, man. We're going to do this in about 15, 20 minutes. I said, let me hold this in thing. And because you got, when something like that happens, I look at it as an offer because I'm in the private. You made me an offer that contains threats. I can accept your offer, reject your offer, ignore your offer, or do a counter offer. I said, what are we going to do? We're going to do a counter offer. So we've crafted the response to the Internal Revenue Service. We need to know who is signing this. Who is the one that's going to do this, that, the other, and the third? Could you please identify yourself? Could you identify your office, its origins, when it was created, who is in charge? We just trying to get, we're not trying to get to an organization. We're trying to get to a butt. I just need to know where you at. I just need a target. But anyway, we crafted the information. We sent it to the Internal Revenue Service. And a couple of weeks later, he said, well, they sent me a response. So bring it here, let me look at it. And they told me that we've gotten your information. Give us 6 months, and we will respond to you in regards to this matter. Okay. That's been 12 years ago, and we haven't heard mouse pee on cotton. But anyway, we're moving right along. We're going to take another little break, and I'm going to run another commercial, and then when we come back, we're going on down into the nuts and bolts and wiggle pins of some more of this information. So y'all hold on a minute. We'll be right back.
Today in September 2023, the United States is bringing up the student loan thing again, just like I said they would in 2022. And a lot of people took no action back then. They advertised they would give you a loan to go to school, but you don't receive a check. But anyway, you go for it. The next thing you know, you get a bill in the mail for a loan they said they gave you. And guess what? It has interest attached to it. And as time goes on, it gets bigger and bigger because it was never meant to be paid off. It was designed for you to pay for the rest of your natural life. Get my free report. Go to tarhakadebtelimination.org. That's tarhakadebtelimination.org. Become a creditor instead of a debtor. Get in the private. Get out of the public. Peace.
Okay, we're back. Now, let's get on down into some more nuts and bolts and wiggle pins about the situation. I know you, in previous broadcasts, you heard me tell different stories about things that happened that I've actually done Because see, if you are dealing with something, you have to know whether or not it works. You know, you don't want to just be an armchair quarterback. You want to get out there on that gridiron and actually do some things, or test some stuff. And what I mean by that is actually deal with it in real life. And you can't go at something half-cocked. You want to go at it wholeheartedly. You want to be serious about what you're doing and make sure that all your T's are crossed and all your I's are dotted. So what I want to do now, before we get on down into this natural law and this your food, air, and water and all that stuff, I want to deal with correction of status, because we're still dealing with this law. So y'all hold on a minute, and we'll be right back, okay?
Well, hello. Thanks for joining me. Today we're going to talk about changing legal status. This is Mark Emery. I'm the founder of the Lighthouse Law Club. Most of you know who I am. Those of you who don't, stick around. You'll catch up quick enough, I'm sure. This is a members-only webinar, and we'll be sharing part of it with the public. And we're going to be getting into, again, changing legal status. You know, the one thing that I really enjoy the most about the Law Club is having the opportunity to speak personally and directly with each and every one of you, you know, as you come along. And there are so many fascinating stories, so many fascinating personalities. I just find it a real joy to share the energy that we create in putting some great minds together. And in that regard, there seems to be a common theme with most everybody that I talk to. And that common theme is that we recognize the mess that we're in by virtue of how we've been suckered into contracts without full disclosure and lack of informed consent. And we've been suckered into this legal status that we need to get out of, and we need to change it to get back to our natural, God-given, inherent state of presence so that we don't have all of these interferences and intrusions and compelled performance statutes intruding and imposing themselves in our lives. So that's a common theme, and so let's get into it. Now, there's a lot of folks out there doing different things. That's really great. As one individual, you can only do so many things, same with myself or anybody else. And the fact that we're all having different experiences is something that we can draw on and gain strength from. Now, where I'm headed with this is real simple. As it relates to changing status, there are some very advanced legal technologies out there that get into some very exotic types of paperwork and processes. Becoming the secured creditor on the bond created by your birth certificate. That's a fascinating process. I'm fascinated by it. I haven't done it myself yet. And I think it could very well be very effective under the right circumstances. We're not going to talk about that tonight. Tonight we're going to stick to practical measures for moving to the private side and living a private life. These are practical things that you and I can do in short order without getting wrapped up in all kinds of fancy legal documents and legal mumbo-jumbo and extended processes and interactions and waiting for responses and all of that kind of thing. Again, as valuable as that may be, but as we go along here today, you'll find out why it's important that we do much more than that, and if we don't take care of the practical matters first, then all your fancy legal paperwork isn't going to mean diddly squat. All right, you're going to see that. So let's take a few minutes, just review some of the basics. Most of you, I'm sure, have the basics under your belt, but it's important that we establish this review so we have a solid foundation to proceed on, and that those who are just coming along, just getting on board with some of this type of information and training, that they can come along with us and catch up with us real quick so that we're all on the same page when we get to the finish line. Okay? So let's jump right into it. Let's compare the private side with the public side. We can see that in the beginning, God created man. We'll call him John Michael Smith and everyone else, right? That's where it all started. He gave us dominion over the earth, and he blessed us abundantly. Based on what? Our covenant with him. He later gave a covenant to Moses. What's another word for a covenant? It's a contract. Our blessings were premised upon the fulfillment of our end of that covenant. If we failed in the contract, guess what? The blessings would be withdrawn, and we'd have our own devices to deal with, and the results that come from that. And here we are. All right, so contract law you will find throughout the Bible, and this is where it all comes from. With that, we have natural rights. Rights are not something that anybody can give you, but rights are something that nobody can take away. Those rights include the right to free travel. If we have dominion over the earth, we come and go as we please. We ingress and egress. We don't need to pay someone for permission to travel. We have the right to be left alone, to live our own life however we want to live it, believe whatever we want to believe, be as weird as we want to be. And so long as we don't impose or trespass upon the rights or property of someone else, there is no crime, there's peace, and we live our lives as we see fit. We have the right to self-defense, the pursuit of life, liberty, and happiness. If you understand history, when our founding fathers were writing the Declaration of Independence, there was a great debate over what word should be used. Should it be property or happiness? Initially, the phrase was the pursuit of life, liberty, and property, because one who has the right to own, claim, and use property is happy, and so that embodies happiness. And so there was a great debate that, one means the same as the other, so we can use that term property interchangeably. So we have the right to pursuit of life, liberty, and property, or we can say we have the right to pursue life, liberty, and happiness. So man created the state government to regulate his affairs and to serve him, so that we'd have halls of justice, we could have some order, we'd have some agreed upon rules that we could all live by, so that we could all live with increased security and more prosperity, so we could do business and live. So state government was created to serve man. So as the states sprouted up in the history of the United States of America, there were 13 colonies who evolved into states. Those states started having different currencies, different rules, and the conflicts increased as each state kind of went about its own business in a little different way. And so with that conflict, that level of conflict growing, it was imperative that the state governments get together and create a federal government to help unify standards and protocols and to better manage the intercourse between the different states, so things would run a little bit, or if not a lot, more smoothly. From this point, administrative agencies were then created to help both the federal and the state governments administer their affairs, just helping take care of the administration of the business that was intended. So here we see the hierarchy. Look at who's on top, where this all started. This is the hierarchy of order. Everything starts with God. God created man, gave him dominion over the earth. Man serves God, and man is the top man on the totem pole in the physical world here on the earth. State governments serve man, federal governments serve the state governments, and the agencies work for everybody else. And this is the hierarchy of order. This is the private side. This is the private side where man is the sovereign, under God, of course. So long as we maintain our covenant with God, we maintain those blessings, we maintain our dominion over the earth, we are blessed abundantly in everything that we do, and things proceed along the lines of a life of freedom, liberty, life, liberty, and property, right? So let's look at the public side. On the public side, the government creates John M. Smith. This is not the John M. Smith that was born and created by God. This is a different John M. Smith. This is a fictional entity, just like a corporation is a fiction. John M. Smith, all capital letters, is a corporate entity. It's a fiction. All right, so now that this is created, the federal government has dominion over the state governments due to the money powers and many other things. It also has dominion over John M. Smith. Those federal administrative agencies also have dominion over John M. Smith. And John Michael Smith doesn't know any better, so he identifies himself as John M. Smith, responds to the mail, and acts as though he is one and the same, and all of a sudden he no longer has dominion over the earth. In fact, not only does he not have dominion over the earth, he doesn't even have dominion over himself, or his house, or his land, or his kids. The government owns him and is telling him what to do, what to buy, what kind of insurance to have, how much to have, what kind of cars to buy, where to put his kids, how he should buy his house, what kind of standards his house needs to live up to. He doesn't have dominion over his land. Look at what the BLM is doing to the ranchers, kicking them off their land, stealing it, burning down their houses. We don't own land. And you certainly don't have dominion over your kids when Child Protective Services knocks on your door and takes them away just because they can. So the question comes down real simple. What side of the law would you like to be on? It's pretty obvious why so many people are catching on and wanting to move over to the private side, right? It comes down to a hierarchy of order. Do we want to live in a land where federal and state governments have dominion over us? We don't have any God-given rights? Or do we want to live where man is sovereign, in covenant with and under God, where we have the freedom to live our lives as we see fit? And we have the governments to serve us and to maintain stability and security and nothing more. So the choice is quite obvious, right? So that's why we're moving from the public to the private and changing our legal status. How do we get suckered into all this? I know most of you are aware of this, but let's just review it real quickly. All right, the birth certificate for John M. Smith is created. When he is born, he is taken from the water. When the water breaks from his mother, he is delivered upon the land. The baby is delivered from the water, admiralty, delivered upon the land. A certificate is created, as in a bill of lading from the ship's manifest. The ship is the vessel, which was the mother. Again, bringing admiralty from the water upon the land. The certificate indicates that there is ownership over John M. Smith, but it is not the title. It merely is evidence of the existence of a title for John M. Smith. So that's where things start. Social Security, we're told we need to apply for a Social Security card in order to get a job. We all know the story behind that. It's a big lie. The law itself says it's purely voluntary. In fact, there was a lawsuit with the Equal Employment Opportunity Commission when someone objected to being forced to put a Social Security number on their job application with Taco Bell in order to get a job. And they won that lawsuit. They were not required to put their Social Security number to get a job. But the point here is that the application, when you sign that as true, complete, and correct, and put your authenticated signature upon that application for contract, that application is full of admissions and confessions, just like all federal documents are. You admit to being a United States citizen. Well, at that point in your life, when you're a 15-year-old kid, chances are you were a state citizen and not a federal citizen. So there's all kinds of ramifications on that. We understand that. All kinds of admissions and confessions that are not true. It's fraudulent inducement, lack of informed consent. You didn't know what you were signing. Okay? It's based on fraud, and we'll talk about that in a minute. Now, Federal Reserve notes are promises to pay. That's what a note is, promissory note. So our currency that we're exchanging every day are promises to pay, which never get paid. In fact, since the United States became bankrupt in 1933, there has been no lawful payment done since that time. We've been exchanging credit and negotiable instruments. And since nothing is paid by law, because there is no lawful money in circulation, what we're doing is we're exercising the franchise, which is the privilege of discharging debt. The privilege of discharging debt is not lawful, but it is public policy. So we're not operating in law, we're operating in public policy. And the public policy is, since you never paid for anything, you don't own anything, which is why the government can come and take anything from you whenever they want, because you don't own it. So we won't get into that, the whole money issue. That's something that needs to be understood very well, if you don't already, and many of you do. Corporate employment is a key element. One of the first things the judge will ask you when you step into court, okay, and are you employed? Where are you employed? Oh, well, I'm a warehouse manager over at Home Depot over on Lincoln Avenue. Okay, very good. And where do you reside? No, I'm over here on 910 Birch Street. Okay, so the judge says, so you reside and you're doing business in the state. Thank you very much. You've just granted me jurisdiction. We will now proceed against you. Corporate employment is very problematic. We'll talk about that as we get into some of the details, but you need to be seriously thinking about doing something about that. And again, we'll get into that in just a minute. But those are federal benefits. Corporations are creatures of the state. When you work for a creature of the state, exchanging your services for promises to pay, which are issued by the Federal Reserve, a private corporation, you were so deep into commercial law and federal regulation, it isn't funny. All right, so that's something we need to be careful of. Being a resident. All right, let's break this word apart. I get into this in my workshop, The Private Traveler. Res is the Latin term for the thing. Ident is the root for identified, right? So resident is the thing identified. Identified as what? Identified as property, inventory, chattel. You understand? Because you're identifying yourself with John M. Smith in all capital letters, you are owned by the state. So again, that's why the judge asks you right off the bat, where do you work and where do you reside? All right, you better have a good answer for that. Do you have a bank account? Well, you ask, well, how could having a bank account set me up for receiving federal benefits. If you've got a bank account in your name, your signature is on the account, you've accepted all the terms of the bank, and even though the bank may have a state charter, it's a state chartered bank, it does have FDIC insurance. And so you're receiving benefits from the Federal Deposit Insurance Corporation. So there's your federal benefits right there. Insurance contracts. The state requires John M. Smith to have various insurance contracts. He needs to have automobile insurance, he needs to have health insurance, he needs to have business insurance, liability insurance, right on down the line. Insurance contracts are interstate compacts. They're interstate agreements. They derive from maritime jurisdiction. This brings us right into commerce, which brings us right into federal regulation. And that's a whole subject we could get into, but we won't. Okay, you know about the driver's license and the marriage license. What is a license? A license is permission to do that which is otherwise illegal. So that begs the question, well, geez, when was it ever illegal for me to drive my grandma to the church? Well, just by virtue of the fact that you do not understand language, we can see that by virtue of the fact that you're using the term driver, that you are a driver. You're applying to be a driver, and therefore you want to get licensed. Driver is a commercial term. We have taxi drivers. We have truck drivers. We have private chauffeurs who are drivers. We have postal carriers who are drivers. We have package delivery people that are drivers. This is all commerce in transport. These are commercial terms. Now, if you're not engaged in commerce on the roadways and the byways, then you are not a driver. Therefore, why on earth would you apply for a driver's license? You've always had the right to travel, and people are learning this, and they're learning how to do it successfully. So, again, you were fraudulently induced. Nobody told you about that, so you applied for commercial privileges. When did it become illegal to get married? The marriage license actually originated, I believe it was back in the 1800s when they made it illegal for interracial marriages to happen. All right? They didn't want the slaves marrying the non-slave class. And so the license was required. And then the practice grew, and all of a sudden, what you're doing now is you're taking a right and converting it to a privilege granted by the state. When I got married, I didn't use a marriage license. I found a pastor who would do it without one. Not all of them will. So what happens when you apply for a marriage license? You're bringing the state into the marriage as a third party, just like your spouse is. So the state is now has equal standing as your spouse does in that marriage. I was talking to a gentleman from Montana, and he looked at the back of his marriage license, and it stated very clearly that the product of this marriage belongs to the state. Well, think about that. What's the product of a marriage? Children. Are you starting to get the picture now? These are very serious issues. So these are some of the benefits that we apply for, and we get sucked into these contracts. In doing that, really we violate the covenant that we had with God. And so we move from that jurisdiction, we get sucked into another jurisdiction, which is highly regulated and generates fees, fines, all kinds of forms, and we could go on and on. All right, so this is what traps us. Let's take a look at this. The private Federal Reserve Bank. Look on your dollar, your Federal Reserve notes. You see that E on the left. That E signifies the issuing bank, the bank that issued this Federal Reserve note. And E happens to stand for the Federal Reserve Bank of Richmond, Virginia. Okay, so when we see that E, we know which bank owns this promissory note. And if they ever decide to claim it, it's theirs, they can come and get it. Okay? So you see that same E in the serial number, which again immediately identifies the issuer. The issuer is the owner. Now, we can see also on the back of the Social Security card, this number is not the Social Security number. There are many people out there that know more about this than I do, but they'll tell you that this is the registration number or the bond number representing the bond that's created by virtue of your application for the Social Security card. Now, how could they create a bond? Well, when you apply for the Social Security number, what are you doing? You're saying, I want you to take so much money out of my check for the rest of my life on the hopes that maybe I'll see some of it back when I retire. Think of all the money that someone generates, not only in terms of withholdings, but taxes paid, all the different types of taxes that are paid. I saw a list of all the taxes that are paid, and it was pages. I mean, there were hundreds of different types of taxes that we pay. And so think about how that adds up over someone's lifetime and as a part of their earnings. And when that compounds, and when you can use leverage with the fractional reserve banking system, how you can take $1, make it $10, lend that out again, and do it over and over and over. It becomes exponential. So we can see that this account is owned by the Federal Reserve Bank. This account is in the name of John M. Smith, and you identify yourself as John M. Smith, and therefore you're obligated to this account to continue paying for the rest of your life. So isn't that sweet? Okay? Just something to be aware of. So, the IRS is a private collection branch for the Federal Reserve. That's what they do. They collect for the private Federal Reserve. Now, take a look at this. The IRS doesn't collect money for the government. They're a private trust domiciled in Puerto Rico. And you can look it up yourself. Let's read this. In 1953, the Internal Revenue was created by the stroke of a pen when the Secretary of the Treasury changed the name of the Bureau of Internal Revenue, Treasury Order number 150-29, G.M. Humphrey, Secretary of the Treasury, July 9, 1953. However, no congressional or presidential authorization for making this change has been located. So, the source of the authority had to originate elsewhere. Research to which IRS officials have acquiesced suggests that the Secretary exercised his authority as trustee of Puerto Rico Trust number 62, Internal Revenue. And you can see this in Title 31 of the U.S. Code, Section 1321. Look it up yourself. And as will be demonstrated, the Secretary does, in fact, operate as Secretary of the Treasury, Puerto Rico, which is a territory. It's not even a state. Puerto Rico, as a territory, is managed by the United States in Washington, D.C., the corporation. United States, the corporation. Now, one thing you may not be aware of is that the Secretary of the Treasury of the United States does not receive his paycheck from the United States federal government. He is paid by whom, do you know? By the IMF, the International Monetary Fund. So, what's this telling us? The Treasurer of the United States is paid by foreign interests. The people you pay your so-called taxes to in the IRS, that money actually, well, number one, doesn't even touch the floor of U.S. government offices. So if you think you're paying for roads and bridges and schools and health centers and justice systems and armies and military and everything else with your taxes, I'm sorry to tell you, not one penny is going to anything that benefits the people. It's going straight into a private trust, which is managed by a combination of the IMF, a federal corporation known as the Federal Reserve Bank, and that ultimately ends up with the Queen of England or the Vatican. So, you want to pay your taxes? It's your choice. It's entirely your choice. All right? So, you say to yourself, well, crap, I'm not going to do that anymore. I'm not going to pay my taxes if that's where it's going. Well, I'm sorry, but you're hooked. You're hooked by the agreements that you've made. You've made admissions and confessions in the applications that you've signed that you are a charter member of this corporation known as the United States, nothing to do with the government, and you're regulated by commerce, you're engaged in commerce, you're wrapped up by contracts, and unless you do something about that, you're stuck. You're hooked. You're not getting off the hook. We've got agreements in place. So this is the dilemma that we find ourselves in, right? Let me give you some resources right now. Having said that, it's very easy to rid yourself of the IRS. It's very simple. I should say it's simple. Not always so easy, but it is simple where you can...
All right, ladies and gentlemen, we're back. Now, I hope you all are taking notes on this stuff. This is the kind of stuff I've been trying to tell the people for a long, long, long time. Now, when it comes to your ability to defend yourself, because everybody wants to live in peace. We don't want to be burdened by debt. We want to be able to freely move about and have our being, enjoy our families, our children. You know, everybody wants this for themselves. But with this apparatus in place that the gentleman described, and us not knowing how to function in it and how to deal with it, we find ourselves victims. That is why I tell people, just go over there to tarhakaelimination.org. Fill out the contact us form. I'll send you my free report. Now, once I do that, I'm expecting you to your life and your family's life and your loved one's life serious enough to do something about your current situation. We have many, many people across the country and other parts of the world that request my free report. I send it to them. They'll look at it. They'll put it down. And they never get around to doing something. And then one day, out the clear blue sky, they'll call me and say, well, Brother Tarhaka, I've been checking this stuff out. I've been listening to you for a long, long time. Matter of fact, I've been listening to you for the past 2-3 years. I always find that amazing. Man, I'm ready to do something. Wow, man. 3 years. Okay. And I'm not condemning anybody, but it just fascinates me to hear this, because we're out here trying to get everybody right now. But I've discovered that you're not going to be able to assist anybody until they are willing to be assisted. And even at that, a lot of people who say, well, I'm willing to be assisted, they will start up and they will fizzle out and they say, man, I got this, that, and the other going on. And, well, that's why you call me, so I can keep this, that, and the other from going on. But nevertheless, we're still here, TarhakaDataElimination.org. We're going to take another little quick break because we've been dispensing quite a bit of information here early this morning. And keep in mind, title of the broadcast is Tarhaka Runs a Test, because we've been having some technical difficulties on our show. And we want to make sure that all of this is ironed out before we bring on our guests and schedule other shows and be doing the stuff that we normally do. So y'all hold on, we'll be back.
The sun don't seem to shine on me no more. I find myself waiting by the door. Things just ain't the same since you've been gone. So I kill time waiting by the phone, hoping that you'll call or just come home. Your side of the bed is cold and I'm alone. So I call mom and mama said, son, let it go, move on, 'cause she's gone, yeah, she's gone, oh, she's gone, yeah, she's gone, and I know, but what if mama was wrong? At night I pace the floor and corridor. I'm a man of wealth, but by myself I'm poor. So Lord, take this, take that, 'cause I can't take no more. She was all I'm living for, and now she's gone. There's all this emptiness inside my home. Her side of the bed is cold and I'm alone. So I call mom and mama say, son, let it go, move on, 'cause she's gone, yeah, she's gone, oh, she's gone, yeah, she's gone, and I know, just move on, please keep on going, keep going, that life will keep on going, don't let her go, it's time to let her go and move on, let her go, she's gone, yeah, she's gone, she's gone, oh, she's gone, and I know, oh, and I know, but what if mama was wrong? Yeah, yeah. Oh, she's gone, and she's gone away. I don't think I can make it another day. And I know, oh, I know, what if mama's wrong? Oh, what if mama's wrong? I know she's gotta be wrong.
All right, everybody, we're back. Now, we have 45 minutes left on the clock, and we're going to deal with this status, public, private, business. We're going to deal with all of that. And a lot of people get this. But let's deal with you as the individual in growing your own food. Okay, now we're talking about putting in the works and getting self-gratification, and there's nothing like and being able to walk out into your own yard or on your own porch or in your own living room and crop a tomato to put on a sandwich that you can eat, that you grow. Nothing like it. Let's deal with growing your own food right there in an apartment. How about that? And it's fun, man. And the reason I'm telling you this is because I done already did. Y'all.
Hey guys, welcome back to Container Crops with Scaredy Cat Corner. It's an amazingly beautiful day here in Zone 7B, and I am so glad that you all stopped by. Today, we're going to be talking about 10 veggies that you can grow indoors year-round, all year long. And you don't need any fancy grow lights, you don't need any heating mats, you don't need any special space. We're not talking about scraps from the kitchen. We're not talking about hydroponics. We're just talking about veggies in soil that you can grow year-round.
Show off your fantasy reality, whoa. That's yours, but I'll keep doing mine. You'll be living your good life. Catch a glimpse from the outside all the time.
Okay guys, we are back, and before we get started, if you are new to the channel, welcome, welcome, welcome. Thank you so much for stopping by. If you are returning, thank you for coming back again. I really do appreciate each and every one of you guys. Take a second and subscribe to the channel. Turn on that notification bell so you won't miss anything. And don't forget to head over to Facebook, my Facebook group, which is for you guys, not me. I want to see what you're growing and what's going on in your zone and in your garden. Go ahead, post over there. It's Container Crops on Facebook, and you can always find me on IG at The Scaredy Cat Gardener. I'm going to make this short, quick, and simple. We're going to get right into it. Okay, like I said, I'm not talking about kitchen scraps that you can restart veggies from. I'm not talking about citrus trees that you bring inside. This is real food that you can grow indoors year-round. You don't need any expensive equipment, expensive grow lights, no shop lights, nothing like that. So what are these 10 vegetables? Okay, so first up we have carrots. Like most root veggies, they require little sun. Next up we have bush beans. Unlike pole beans, bush beans require little space, and it's one fruiting crop that doesn't require a lot of sun. Scallions. They're perennials. You can keep it growing just by snipping the leafy green parts off as it grows. Number 4, sprouts and microgreens. You can grow them in soil and propagation trays. And guess what? They need no drainage holes because they require very little water. Believe it or not, number 5 on my list is garlic. And although you can only grow the garlic greens, they are still delicious and work well in many recipes. Salad greens. If you pick the baby leaves, they can be grown also very close together. Greens you can grow inside include things like loose leaf lettuce, chard, mustard greens, arugula, and there are many, many more. Radish. Believe it or not, they can be grown inside. They have shallow roots and require just a little bit of space. Peas. You need to pick a non-vining variety that grows upright, so maybe about 18 inches, and they'll do just fine. Beets, just like radish, have shallow roots. Thin them and use the leaves like microgreens. Baby beets mature in about 60 days. And one of my favorites, micro tomatoes. Now these are special mini varieties. They only grow about maybe 10 inches tall, 12 at the most. And you can use a 1-gallon pot and produce lots of juicy red cherry tomatoes. Now you will need a few supplies to grow these. The normal things you'll need, of course, your containers and some soil and some water. Those are the common things that you know you'll need. It would help if you have a south-facing window. If you have an area that's humid, where you can have some humidity or create your humidity. And then you need a space that has some good air circulation. And that's it. Now, if you don't have a south-facing window, but you just have a room that gets a moderate amount of sunlight, then these 10 veggies will do just fine. This is an amazing thing because sometimes when we grow in small spaces, we don't always have a lot of outdoor space to grow in, and this will allow us to grow more indoors. So I hope you guys enjoyed this list, and by all means, this list is not all-inclusive. This is just my list, my favorite list. Hopefully, it'll get you thinking outside of the box, and you can create a list of varieties and things that you can check into to see if you can grow them year-round indoors. Also, I want to say that growing indoors sometimes is a benefit if you live in a, is a benefit if you live in an area that has a very short growing season. That because of the weather, the cold, or the sunlight, the daylight, growing inside can be a major benefit to keep you growing your own food. Okay, guys, so that's going to do it for today. That's my list of 10 things that you can grow indoors year-round. Please give the video a thumbs up. Don't forget to subscribe, and as always, share it out. Share it out, share it out. I know that there is someone that you know that would love to be growing year-round indoors. Okay, I will see you all next time, and until then, remember, anywhere you can sit a pot, you can grow a plant. And I'll see you on the trail.
You'll be living your good life, catch a glimpse of the outside all the time.
Okay, we're back. I like this here because I had fun doing that. I got grapes growing around here up the wazoo. They're on top of the fence now, so it won't be long before the vines that are planted along the fence. And they get on top of the fence, they'll grow down across the fence, and they'll go in one direction. And what is interesting is they won't change direction for a certain period of time, but then all of a sudden, you look around and there's another vine. He's going down in the right direction because what they're trying to do is connect with each other. Because I got 4 of them on one side of the fence, got one in the front on both sides, and then another around the corner, and in the back got a whole bunch. All what's going to happen is they're going to grow up and connect with one another, and then the next thing you know, then we got grapes. Okay, but you're in an apartment, you got your lettuce growing, you got your tomatoes growing. In an apartment, you got, I would say, less than 10 foot of space on a balcony or on the front porch or whatever. You got your tomatoes growing, you got your carrots growing, you might have some onions. Well, for those of you who eat hamburgers, all you got to do is go get you some ground beef if you ain't got no cattle like that that you can slaughter. I know you ain't got that. And then come back and get your lettuce and tomatoes and all that. You make yourself some hamburgers and your children and the grandbabies, they can smack on it. And you're good to go. You'll save a whole lot of money. You'll save that grocery store, all that hustle and bustle. You went in one time, got one. But it's fantastic. And if you're growing it, then you know what's in it. You follow me? Now, we're going to get to the folks that's out there in the yard that's really doing it. I mean, they got a garden, they got trees, they taking in more harvest than the family can eat, so they'll put it in freezer bags and put it inside the freezer. And when they get ready to cook meals and stuff, they go get it and they say, well, I can add this over here and I got that. I mean, you know, a total savings because they are growing their own food. We still doing that. But let's get, because we got a brother out there in in L.A. I don't know if he's still there. His name is Ron Finley. He's a gangster gardener and stuff. And this brother, he's the most amazing brother I ever seen in my life. Brother he grow food in dressing rooms. He take old boots and grow stuff in there. He took his swimming pool, outdoor swimming pool. I'm talking about a brick and mortar, big old giant swimming pool. No water in it, just turn it into a oasis. The brother is the greatest, man, and we want to hear what he got to say.
I recently learned of a guy by the name of Ron Finley. First, I followed him on Instagram, then I took his master class. I actually got a chance to meet him recently, and he taught me that when it comes to gardening, sometimes we try a bit too hard to get it just right. His attitude is let Mother Nature take the wheel.
Give me that broccoli.
Give me that kale. Ron Finley calls himself the gangster gardener.
We have some ginger growing back here.
But his commitment to growing healthy food goes way past a catchy nickname. How far past? Ron Finley turned his swimming pool into a garden oasis, and his message is catching on. What do you think it is about this time that's had everybody turning to the earth in a way?
I think it's one word: value. People really see what truly has value, because what we've been taught has value. You can't eat diamonds.
You sure can.
You know, especially in a pandemic.
This is an opportunity, I think, for families to be doing some things in their gardens. Give some ideas, because I think we all think we should have a space like this. I don't have an old pool I can turn into an Eden. What can I do if I've got a little space at home?
A girlfriend of mine told me, with all the stuff I've done, the only thing I'm going to be known for the rest of my life is the dresser drawer. I'm going to show you how to take this old dresser drawer and turn it into a garden. If I tell you how many people contacted me, and they were out on the street getting dresser drawers, and oh my God, it was so crazy. They would send pictures on Facebook and Instagram of them doing their dresser drawers.
That's amazing.
So, but you don't need a big space. I mean, look at this box here. Everything that's in here, you know, from sunflowers to calla lilies to eggplant to blueberries to peppers to sugar cane.
You got sugar cane growing in that.
I have.
Ron's masterclass and social media channels can help you grow your own food anywhere. Seriously, anywhere. One key, don't overthink it. Just get to it. The key is getting the right soil, and I can grow pretty much anything.
Anything.
Next tip, buy a bag of soil, because you never know what toxins are in the ground.
I got a bag of soil.
Okay.
I can cut the bag of soil and put my plants in it.
And it'll grow.
It'll grow. It's good. I can pile soil on the concrete. That tree over there is a nectarine that's growing in 18 inches of soil on top of concrete. And if I tell you how prolific it is, it's unreal.
Why is that? Is it because you've got the magic touch?
No, because you're working with certain elements. You're working with soil. You're working with a seed. Everything starts from a seed,
yeah.
Even you know. And you have water, and nature's gonna make it happen. You know, so it's that simple. I mean, literally so 18 inches of soil, and you see the size of that tree, and it's on top of concrete.
So then why am I killing my lemon tree?
Well, because we're trained to think like that. We're trained. Do you see weeds coming up everywhere? Do you?
No.
You think elves come at night
and weed
and weed and dance and listen to house music? You know what I'm saying?
Yes, I do, Ron. I actually think that's what happens in the forest.
No one's out there tilling soil. You know, it's gonna Mother Nature's gonna happen.
So you're saying it just sort of handles itself? Do you think that we get too fussy?
Mother Nature gonna win, period. So, I mean, all we're doing is giving an assist.
A nudge.
Yeah. So, I think people take it too serious. People, oh, I made a mistake. There's no mistakes. There's only lessons. Gardening is it's a battle. You're in a battle with all kinds of insects that you've never seen in your life that's desecrating and disturbing and disrespecting your garden.
It feels like disrespect, doesn't it?
It is disrespect.
Ron is so savvy. He's trying to make the act of growing your own fruits, vegetables, and herbs in your own garden gangsta. He wants everybody from every neighborhood to get their hands dirty and have the experience of eating something that you have grown yourself. There's no feeling quite like that. You know, coming up in these days right now, I think all of us can...
Okay, we're back. Now, the brother, what he did, it was the most interesting thing, because I had thought about this a long time ago. I said, okay, we got all these homeless people, and people standing out in front of the grocery stores. Brother, you got any spare change? And of course, you know, I think back to Robert Williams back in the day. No, why don't you get a spare job? And but all jokes aside, you got, okay, out in front of your house, you got area, that's all this city property. Okay, but, you know, there's nothing there but grass. So you put some, the brother went and started planting trees, fruit trees. Well, anybody, homeless or not, hungry, starving, you can just walk up to that tree and pull you a piece of fruit off the tree and eat something, put something in your stomach. And the city came up, well, you can't do that, and this is city property and all that. The people that over there in L.A., they went berserk. So they said, man, this man, so what they did was they backed off. They said, hey, okay, what you doing is a good thing. And, you know, we do more. It's always been a good thing. Even before y'all start stealing, it was good. And policing and regulating and controlling and subjugating and oppressing and all of this stuff. It was always good. But nevertheless, let's deal with a person that's really, really serious about getting some stuff done. We're going to deal with homestead out there. Now, this is a sister. I think she got 1 or 2 children or what have you, but she is growing her own food. Not only that, she got her little animals. So I'm truly impressed with this sister here, and I just had to let you all hear about this. So y'all hold on a minute, we get into it.
Welcome to Yellow Door Urban Homestead. I'm an urban gardener growing in a small space in my backyard. I am urban homesteading. I am growing our own food. I am a mother of 2, 1 adult son and 1 teenager. I'm growing food for us to eat, fresh food, food that I know hasn't been sprayed, food that I know, you know, how it was grown. I do have a small orchard area where I am growing apples and peaches, and I'm also growing meat. I'm growing eggs, so I have 7 chickens and I have 5 quail. But the biggest thing that I'm doing in my backyard is growing food. It is something that I started doing in 2020, and it's a lot of things to me. It is food, it is peace, it's a hobby. It's a thing that I do that makes me feel good. Like that one little seed can produce so much food, and it's just amazing to me. And it's a lot of work, but it's a lot of food, and you wouldn't think you could grow that much food in your backyard. But I do kind of intense planting out here, so I'll fill the bed as much as I can. Just kind of the thing that you do in an urban setting when you don't have a lot of space. And I will tell you, during the summer, I don't buy vegetables. I have no reason to. Even in the winter, because I do preserve my food. I freeze some. I'm learning to can a little bit better. I dehydrate. I dry things, like just air dry them. So I also don't know the last time I purchased herbs, because, you know, herbs grow huge and they produce a lot in one season. And some things I just grow because I like to grow it. I have a lot of medicinal herbs, and I'm trying to learn those as well. So 3 years I've been doing this, and it's a lot to learn. It's a lot to do. and I can't see myself not doing gardening. And I say to myself, like, why didn't you start earlier? Why are you just now starting? But I don't think you would know how much you would enjoy it until you start. My backyard before was actually pretty scary. I didn't come back here that much before I did this, and now I find myself here all the time. I never thought that this would be what my backyard looked like, honestly. I watched so many YouTube videos, and I did a lot of reading on the internet. And so as the time has passed, you know, we went from 1 garden bed to 3 garden beds. And then it just kind of exploded into what it is right now. So 365 days a year, this urban garden grows. I do a lot of growing in bags. It helps me to have more space to grow where, you know, I couldn't make the bed big enough to grow the same plants in it. I use bags, and that has very much extended my growing space. There's probably about 60 of them out here, if not more. That's where I was at last count. I miss these. They got huge cucumbers. I'll probably make pickles out of them. I'm very new to canning. I did a little bit of canning last year, but I'm not exactly sure I did it right. But I am going to try again. You can get a lot of food from a small space garden. So like I said, I grow in bags, but I also grow kind of in raised beds. So the cinder block beds are the raised beds, and then you see the bags are here. I also have no dig beds, and so basically I just took compost. Well, I put cardboard down, put compost on top of it, and then just started growing. So it doesn't have to be super expensive to start a garden. Actually, the bricks that I have, most of them, they were free. Someone on Facebook Marketplace said, you know, if you want them, you can have them. And so I do containers, raised beds, no dig. Also, my orchard area and my herbs, they're all in ground. So I'm growing in 4 different ways. I grow up to, this saves me space. So where, you know, I would be growing, let's say, these cantaloupe on the ground, and they would just be kind of sprawling everywhere. I grow them up, and it gives me space to grow more, you know, down on the ground and in the beds. But it's a mix, and I kind of like that. I like that everything does not look the same. I like that, you know, there's some contrast in the garden. These are my blueberry bushes. Those are low bush, and I cut them to keep them the size that I want them to be. Blueberry bushes can get huge, and so can still, you know, grow in my backyard. I've got tomatoes back here, which is the normal, you know, gardening thing. There's tomatoes back here. There's squash. There's zucchini. I'm even growing asparagus, which is a perennial that you'll have for the rest of your life once you plant it. I'm growing onions. And I'm actually growing the onions in a hole of the bricks. So, not the biggest ones, but they're edible. They will work in a meal. What else? Like, I have beans growing up this trellis right here. Need to go ahead and harvest those. My trellises are cattle panel trellises, and they can literally stay up all year long. And you don't have to keep taking them down and putting them back up. They're really good for your vining things. So you can grow things that vine up a trellis. And so I love growing up, is what they call it. I have basil and oregano growing. The way I see it, if it's in a seed packet and it can be planted in soil, I'm going to try it in my backyard. But I mean, cucumbers, tomatoes, beans, squash, cantaloupe, watermelon. I'm not very good at growing watermelon, but I try it every year. So that's a basil harvest. Once they start to try to flower, I always take the tops so that the plant can keep growing. And I make tea out of it. I will dehydrate it or let it air dry so that I can use it in the winter. But my garden does grow all year long. And so we're in July. Next month in August, I'll start planting things for fall, like your broccolis and your cabbages, collards, things like that. But I grow 365 days a year. I don't really keep up with how much food I harvest. I harvest it, I eat it, I preserve it. I probably should, but in general, there's a lot of food that comes out of this garden every year, and I'm very happy for it. When I started gardening, I can't say that I had a profound reason why I was doing it. Like, there was no, I want to know where my food comes from. There was no, I don't trust the food system, if I'm honest. I'm just going to be honest. It was just more of needing to find something to do, knowing that my daughter would eat it. But at this point, yeah, that's kind of my reasoning for gardening. I do want to know where my food comes from. I do want to know that it wasn't sprayed. Those are the things that I do now. It is my reason. I'm out here with the girls. So I have, hello lady. I do have 7 chickens. This one is Peace. I'm going to feed them. They're very much used to me now. They also will peck me if need be, but they're used to us now. We recently got 4 new ones. See, there she goes. She will peck me. But we recently got 4 new chickens. I wanted different color layers. The girls I have now, they lay like a light brown and a light pink. Another thing that I do over in the corner of my garden, it's like right beside my porch, is I do compost. It's just like a 2-bin system that I have set up over here. It's looking a little messy now. Like I said, we're in July. But, yeah, I harvest. I keep kitchen scraps. And I do try to do hot composting. There is a thermometer in here somewhere. Yeah, it's not very hot right now. I need to warm it back up. I harvest water in a rain barrel. It's a collapsible rain barrel, and I need to put a spout here so that it comes down. But I do harvest rainwater as well in my backyard. So I'm figuring to bring you over into the greenhouse. I'm growing a little bit over here. I have some shelves in here, and so these are just some shelves that I got. This was an old shelf that was in the house. I think I got these shelves from Walmart. So this is kind of a multi-purpose use. So I dry things in here, and I start seeds in here. And back here, there's a table with all my seed start and stuff on it. And I like to have a spot to sit if I just want to come out here and hang out. So I find that these greenhouses kind of get a bad name because, they're not as sturdy as a greenhouse that you would build out of wood, but you can reinforce it well enough where that doesn't end up being a problem. When I originally got it, it definitely flew all over my backyard, and then I reinforced it with some stakes. I reinforced it with some cinder blocks, some rocks, and it's been a really good greenhouse for me. It didn't take a lot to set it up. It's a nice spot, and if I actually maximize this space, I could grow more. But I also kind of wanted it as a space for me to come and relax, to get out of the sun, to get out of the rain, to get out of the cold. And I don't heat it or anything, but it works for what I need. So one of my biggest struggles you would think would be space, but I find that I have sufficient space to grow a lot of the food that I want to grow, the tall food, the big food, the wide food. I can grow it. I can trellis it up. I can let it sprawl in a space where I don't normally walk. Honestly, one of my biggest struggles is the weeds that grow in my backyard. So I think it's called bindweed. And it's a running weed, so once it comes up, it just roots and keeps going. And so I found that I've been able to suppress it with weed fabric, and that's not a thing that you have to have, because for a long time, I just used cardboard, and I would lay that down in my walkway, I do a lot of my weeding mostly in the off season. During the season, if I see it, I'll pull it, but I'm much more concerned about harvesting my food. I've been lucky enough not to have to fight too much wildlife. Like I have squirrels. I had mice last year. Pretty bad. I have had possums in the back, but not messing with my food. They were messing with my chickens. But that worked itself out too. And so when you talk about growing in an urban setting in your backyard, there are things that you don't have to deal with that you deal with out in, in the country or where you have lots of land. And I don't honestly aspire to have a lot of land. I enjoy this. Now, I do want to live in a place that allows me to have more animals. I want goats, but in general, I'm pretty happy with this space that I have right now, and I honestly don't aspire to have a lot of land. Starting a garden in your backyard can get expensive, but you don't have to spend a lot of money to do this. And I kind of want people to understand that, because I know when I started, I was buying everything. Someone said something about a fertilizer, I went and got it. Someone said something about a way to trellis, I went and got it. And I just had to stop, and I had to think, what is it that I can do that's not very expensive? Because the point of this is to grow your own food, but you don't want to grow your own food at a cost that's more than what, you'd pay at the store. No dig is a wonderful way to do it, because the only thing you're really going to pay for is the compost. You can find the cardboard for free. So I think my space is still very cozy, very neat, but I did not spend a lot of money for it, and I didn't buy everything all at once. And I do share this garden with the world. I share this garden over on YouTube at Yellow Door Urban Homestead, and I also share my garden over on Instagram. Look at those tomatoes. The cherry tomatoes. I do share my garden over on Instagram at Miss Asia Spratley. I just enjoy sharing. I want people to know that you don't have to have a whole lot of land, and you don't have to have a whole lot of space to grow a garden that produces a whole lot of food. This is absolutely a long-term thing for me. I think that I'll always want to be in a garden surrounded by my plants. I'll always want to be thinking about what I'm going to grow next. I'll always be watching YouTube to see what others are doing and admiring their garden and admiring their tenacity and their patience, and because it takes all of that to grow a garden, but what you get back is so worth it. It is very rewarding, and I absolutely love being a gardener.
Subscribe to Explain Alternatives, and please share this video if you liked it. You can also follow Asia on YouTube and Instagram. Thanks for watching.
Okay, everybody, we're back. You ever notice something? I know in these days that a lot of people don't walk in their community. They come out the house, into the garage, get in the car, back out, and crank up the car, and then back out and on the road, and then they go and do what they got to do. They get out the car, walk less than 5 feet or 10 feet away, go in a restaurant, and there is someone that's there to take your order, to seat you, and then they go behind this wall and you wait, and then they come out with something that somebody prepared behind that wall. You don't know what they gave you. You don't know if the chef dropped your chicken on the floor, wiped it on a dirty roll, and put it back on your plate and sent it back. It is amazing. But what I want you to pay attention to is when you go out your garage, you get in your car, you crank it up, you back out, and as you backing out, pay close attention. What I want you to look at is the lines in the concrete that's on your driveway, if you driving down the street, slow down a little bit and look at the lines on both sides of the street. You'll see something growing between them. And if you're in a area where there's a whole whole lot of you say it's not a upkept area, you see all kind of stuff growing between the lines of concrete. I take that as a message to me that I need to do something about growing my own food where I am, where ain't no concrete at. I've seen shopping centers, brand new shopping centers that's been abandoned, and we got actual food growing between the cracks of the sidewalk in the concrete. You can have a brick house, and all you got to do is look at, if you don't do any maintenance around there, just let it sit, and then you will see plant life growing through the cement. I don't take that as a warning that I need to trim it up, even though I will, but I take that to mean that nature is very, very powerful. If they can grow through concrete, what do you think that nature would do for you if you took the time to grow your own food? Now, I'm telling you this here. I've been telling you this here for years and years and years. Everything that you need to know about gardening and growing your own food is right now, right there on the internet. All you got to do is go over there and you're going to learn a tremendous amount of how to do it. And we're dealing with food. Now, the air you breathe, you want to control that. The water you drink, because we can go a long time without food and water. But when it comes to air, we want to deal with that. It'll last a long time without the proper air. Food, air, and water. That's what we need to be, we should make that our anchor, because we can deal with these contracts and private, public, proper status, status in commerce, legal, illegal. We can do all of that. All we need to do is learn how to do it. But the bottom line, the basic commodity, food, air, water. So why don't we go ahead and take control of that and learn how to do that. I met people all over the United States. Met a brother up in Kimberly, Virginia. He told me, he said, man, I used to live in Jacksonville, Florida. He said, but now, he said, I got chickens, I got my garden right there. He said, I don't have no fence. He said, I mean, these chickens were big fat chickens. He said, my chickens run around everywhere they want to run. But they know about a certain time of day they better be here, else they ain't going to eat. So all of them be home. And I eat the best of eggs. There are no chemicals, none of that junk. And me and my family eat good. They had to leave Florida. Then I met another brother over the phone. The brother told me, he said he had to leave Florida because him and a white police officer busted in his house and he shot him to death. He didn't have a warrant and all this stuff, and the court said he was within his rights to do what he did. However, we suggest that you leave town because the rest of his cronies are going to kill you. So he went to Alaska, and he called me and said, man, look, I need you to, he said, I got all the food in the world, but I can't grow no vegetables the way I want, where I am. So I gave him the hookup with a brother over in South Carolina, and now they're rocking and rolling. But nevertheless, grow your own food. Grow your own food. And that way, no matter what happens, you have something. Because if you got children and grandchildren, they won't hear nothing about where the economy collapsed and my food stamps ain't came in. They don't want to hear that. They want to eat right now. So take the time right now while you got the strength and put you something in the ground right where you are. If you're in an apartment, you in a house, whatever you're doing, put something in the ground, do something. It ain't going to grow overnight, but just go ahead and cultivate and stuff. So if push comes to shove, you got yourself something. And you can grow you something to eat, you and your family. If you are fortunate enough to get you a parcel of ground or some land, now you can expand a little bit. And you can preserve what you got. It's not that, well, if I grow it and I put it in the refrigerator, it'll die tomorrow. No. It don't go that way. But nevertheless, I'm going to close out the broadcast. Keep in mind this is the test, and I try to cover as many boxes as I could. But I'm going to close out, and then I'm going to listen to this thing, make sure it's right before I do anything else with it. I've been your host, Tarhaka, LB, and y'all have a good evening, okay?
Where diamonds are, if I rule the world.
I was living in Rome, and then I moved to London, bought a brand new home. And everywhere I went, I drew lots of attention, like a stretch limousine, one of those new inventions. It took a few years for the day had come, but I was ruler of the world, ranked #1. So I headed toward Washington to claim the crown, and let the whole world know that the king was in town. As I arrived, the crowd started to cheer, and then someone yelled out, "The king is here!" So I headed toward the stage to make a speech about the new style of living I was gonna teach. But now I must go, so goodbye to everybody. Tonight I see you all at my super dinner party. And late that night at my super dinner party, I was dancing to the beat and entertaining a lot of dollars. The music started ending, it was time for a speech. The crowd started sitting at the rows of my feet. And this is what it's a dream. I explained to the crowd, but now I rule the world and I feel so very proud. Excuse me, please, for stopping this show. I just had to thank you all for helping me to know. My first day in office, the king of the throne. I spent my first 3 hours on the telephone. You know what news, reporters, and voters too. I had so many calls I didn't know what to do. You know, I'll pass by faculty to work. I signed so many papers, my fingers started to hurt. Then shook off the pain. It ain't no thing, cause there's nothing in the world of being #1 king. I rule the world. I love him, baby. And I meant to love.
Over 40 years ago, we started on a journey. We planted seeds, we made promises, and kept them. We built relationships with equal parts dignity and respect, focusing entirely on protecting the injured, the mistreated. We put together a way of working that became a way of life. Every case made us stronger. Over 40 years ago, we set out to build a law firm, but what we ended up with was so much more. Farah and Farah, Jacksonville. Truck drivers. Without them, our economy would stop. They're constantly racing against time, struggling against exhaustion, and being put under enormous pressure from their bosses, the big trucking companies. This can be a major reason for an accident. Discovering who's at fault can be difficult. We can help. Put our big truck experience to work for you. Call Farah and Farah, Jacksonville.